Welcome to the Elevate Your Event podcast, where we talk about how to plan and execute an unforgettable event that will dazzle your guests and generate more income for your organization. From fundraising and securing trendy auction items to event production and logistics, get the best tips and advice from seasoned fundraising and event professionals who have been in your shoes. Well, here on the Elevate Your Event podcast, we are event experts, and we're here to bring you all the ins and outs of events. And in order to be event experts, you had to have seen a thing or two. So we have some members of the Handbid team here today, and we're going to talk about some of our best and worst event moments. Welcome, Handbid team.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Since we're here, should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jeff Porter, I am the CEO and founder of Handbid, and I have been involved in charity fundraising since 2004 as being on the charity side. I've attended, the classic auctions way back when, especially when my kids were in preschool. So I've been around it for quite some time, and then we founded Handbid in 2011, and that's when we ran our first event with our software. And since then, because it became part of what we did, as our vocation, I have been to countless, I would say hundreds of fundraising events.
It's a great life.
Yeah, and I don't want to steal any thunder from Progressive Insurance, but we like to say in our office,
That's
right?
true.
We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, right? There's no doubt about it.
Progressive, don't sue us. Come be a sponsor of the podcast.
Oh,
That's
thanks,
right.
Progressive.
That's right. We love you, Progressive.
Yes.
You're not my insurance company, but I'm sure you're really good.
We talk about you a lot.
That's right.
Miss Diana.
I'm Diana Duplanche. Don't try to say that outside of New Orleans.
Don't try to spell it either.
Go well. Right. It doesn't go well. I'm Miss Duplanter everywhere else except for, the New Orleans area. So I have been your quintessential, from my experience for events, it's been your quintessential PTA mom. Oh my God, I should be so embarrassed. But I'm not. I'm not embarrassed because we all have to contribute to our communities, and a school is a community. So I started off doing the auctions for my daughter's preschool, and then I moved over to start helping with the auction at my daughter's elementary school. And I was the one that moved them from paper to mobile bidding every time. And it was like pulling people over the finish line, one strong tug-of-war moment at a time.
But give yourself some credit because you did this in 2014.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I like to say, this is what, if y'all have ever been a client of mine on a demo, I'm going to age myself here. Are you ready? Do you know Crystal Gale, the country music
with
artist?
The long hair.
Of course you know her. She sang a song. We were country. I was country when country wasn't cool. We were using apps when nobody wanted to talk about apps.
That's right.
And trust me when I tell you, it was a lot harder in 2013 to sell people on an app than it is today. And that was when I was just the PTA president. So there you go. That's my experience. And then I also go to Handbid events as an on-site expert, which is a lot of fun. And we bring home a lot of stories. And so, Elise, I would like to pass the baton to you.
I am Elise Druckenmiller.
Don't try to say that.
Don't try to say that at home either.
You're safe with Wheeler. You're safe with Porter.
Don't extend beyond that.
My event experience, well, I actually probably 5 years ago started helping Jeff with his fundraising events, and somehow I ended up here at Handbid, and I love it, and have expanded that, and now have joined several boards and event committees for organizations that are near and dear to my heart, and just like Diana, have attended a lot of Handbid events as an on-site expert.
I'm Kristen Wheeler. I do the marketing here at Handbid, and I just facilitate and observe the shindig that is the Elevate Your Event podcast, and provide the booze. And since no one brought me a glass, I get to drink out of the bottle.
Why did we not get her a glass?
Because
I wasn't really in charge of this.
I only had 3 left over
I'm not,
from my wedding.
I am not
so-
complaining. I'm not complaining about just a little. No.
It's going to be a great toast. I'm really feeling
Let's
it.
toast to events and get into our stories.
Let's
Yes.
do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So great.
Since
So
we
Jeff-
don't drink at events, it's nice that we get to
It's
drink
nice
when
that
we
we
talk
get to
about
drink while
events.
we're at work. Talking about events.
Yes.
So can we talk about the first event that Elise ever
gosh.
did for Handbid? Okay.
Please.
I
'Cause-
don't know if I know this.
Oh, this is funny.
it's hilarious.
Yeah. So we're doing this event, and it's downtown Denver, and it is so packed in this place that they have we do check-in in a tent outside, okay? And it's in February. And so in February in Denver, it can be, a little cold, okay? This day it was really cold. So we show up there, and, I think we normally show up about 90 minutes to, I'd say 2 hours before. And I think in this case, we were there quite a bit early. So we were there at least 2 hours before the first check-in. So we're there probably around 3:30, something like that. And so they tell us, okay, well, we only have 6 hours of heat. So we don't want to turn it on right now because the silent auction closes at 11, so checkout's going to go till like 12 or 12:30 in the morning. So we just don't want to turn on the heat, okay? Well,
It's not just cold though. It's like wet.
it's
Cold.
snowing
It
hard.
is snowing.
Yeah. Okay.
Heavy
East Coast
spring
cold.
snow.
So Elise didn't bring like hat and gloves and that kind of stuff. So we're all sharing some stuff around, trying to get everybody warm. And so she's sitting there and she's checking people in at a laptop. And I come over to say, "How's it going?" And she's like, my fingers just won't bend anymore.
And Elise, you're tiny. And
Yeah.
I feel like tiny people get
I'm cold.
colder.
She's cold all the time.
24/7.
Yeah. She is absolutely freezing. And
I
so
have a
finally,
blanket
I was
in my
like,
office.
all right, I got to make the executive decision here. We're just going to go turn the heat on. Because they have this like generator outside with a fuel tank. And so we were out there like trying to figure out how to start this fuel tank to turn the heat on. And then so they have a tube that comes into the tent, right, with the hot air, right? And of course it's blowing at the other end of the tent. So we have to move Elise during check-in from one end of the table to the other so she could be near the heat. All of our check-in staff have like full-on hat, gloves, like earmuffs, you name it.
She was like,
Listen, I didn't get the memo
y'all.
that like you were going to be outside for check-in. I had appropriate clothing on for an outside like walk from the car to go inside to a indoor space.
Yes.
'Kay.
A building
A
structure.
building. I had a coat.
Right.
I had some jeans. I had some shoes. It was a country themed, style. So I was dressed warm, but I wasn't dressed for an outdoor
You
check-in.
weren't dressed for frostbite.
No.
That's what you're
No,
saying.
Literally. Maybe that's why I don't have feeling in my fingers from time to time.
Yes.
It was all this first Handbid event.
So then the next thing that happens actually happens to me. Okay.
the same
So-
event?
Same event.
Oh, my God.
So there's so much snow on the roof, and then we turn the heat on. What do you think the snow on the roof did?
Balls.
It melts.
Melted,
Yeah.
right? So,
It
I don't know
dumps
that.
from the roof
So-
onto.
well, no,
Things.
we're inside a
Ground.
tent, but I open the door to go out and go into the venue, and as I open the door and walk out, this entire rain shower of water dumps on me. Okay. So it's a country event. So I had jeans on, I had a sports coat on, cowboy boots or whatever. I am completely drenched.
Oh, my God.
And it's like
And
You
so
know.
were some of the guests.
25 degrees outside.
And so did you go to your client and say, look what we have endured on your behalf
That's right.
for your cause?
I walked
I'm
inside
drenched."
and they're like, "What happened to you?"
I think we all have an event story like that involves weather, like schlepping something in the heat or schlepping something in the rain.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh no, we've seen a lot. There's definitely been weather issues before, right? And we did an event again downtown, and it was like a massive blizzard, and people like, I'm calling the client. I'm like, "What's your plan for tonight?" And they're like, "Moving on, right as scheduled. Most of the people live downtown, so we're just gonna do it." And like, I'm gonna say nobody showed up. I mean, probably 20% of the guests showed up because no one could park.
Yeah.
because there's so much snow on the streets, you know, that people were like, I just gave up and went home. So, you know, those are bummers. I mean, you just don't plan for those things. You can't plan for them, right? I mean, my sister ran a golf tournament for 13 years, and every year she's stressing about the weather. I'm like, why are you stressing about the weather? You can't do anything about the weather.
There was one not that long ago where there were tornado sirens. They had everybody had to hunker down. There were tornado sirens, and our staff person was texting us, and I said, "Well, it's a good thing. Like, thank goodness for mobile bidding because you don't have to be in the room to bid."
Right.
That's awesome.
Well, that was like. This goes back to Diana's time around 2013, 14, when we have these apps and we're doing mobile bidding, and we have, you know, the web too, and people are really afraid to move from paper to mobile, and then they're asking you everything, right? I mean, everything down to what if the apocalypse happens at my.
I used
so
to
they
get
said
that question all the time.
Well, what if the power goes out? That was my favorite one. What if
yeah.
the power goes out? I said, okay, well, you're probably not going to be able to see much, but you'll be able to bid unless your battery dies on your phone. So at least your auction will be running. She's like, yeah, that's kind of a good point. So,
Yeah. Well, like, what's the alternative? You light candles, and if they're up to code for the fire department, then you stay in the building with your candles, or you say, okay, everybody, here's a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Go take this home. We're going to keep the auction open until tomorrow. I mean, there's
you
just
just
a lot
don't
of
plan.
different
You can't
ways.
plan for all of those things,
can't.
right? And that's what we've learned, and we try to coach our clients through is, look, there's certain things that you can plan for, right? But then there's certain things you can't, and then the instances where you can't, you just need to have. We always say, have somebody who can be your issue resolver. So if you're running an event, you can't be the person resolving all the issues. You need to be able to say, Diana, I need you to go find some candles because the power went out, right? I mean,
Diana, I need you to go roll some silverware.
yes, that is a true story.
This is a true story. It's a good thing they called the mobile bidding people to show up at this event, because without us there, people would not have been able to eat their dinner. Trash would have been piled up. And let me tell you what happened. I guess there was about, and also let me just say this as a disclaimer. If you are a client and you are hearing this story, and we want to tell you that we love all of y'all. We do. We treasure these stories. We bring
But we're
them
going
to
to
our
talk some
office.
tea.
Yeah. We bring them to our office. We literally sit around and say, how can we make this not happen again if it wasn't the best scenario? And we'll call you and we'll give you advice. But we carry these stories with us, and they're part of who we are. So we were at this event and in this undisclosed place, but there were a lot of people there, like 700 people. And we were doing this check-in, and it was just a crazy time. And I was looking everywhere for Jeff. I was like, where did he go? And so he shows up, and I was like, Jeff, where have you been? He was like, well, Diana, I was taking out the trash. And I said, well, I'm really sorry to hear that, because you missed the time when I had to take forks and knives over to tables 9 and 10. And while I was there, I learned that table 7 did not have any dessert spoons.
Oh. Were you wearing like black pants and a white button-up shirt?
Not even close. Not even close.
I was up doing registration, and to her point, there's 700 people walking in the door, and they all tend to come in a very tight time frame. So it's busy in this room. And so we're kind of getting through it, and like fire alarm pulls, right? This lady comes up to me, and she's like, I need your help. I'm like, okay, what? I'm thinking Handbid issue or check-in issue. She's like, they're just piling up trash in the back. There is no trash cans, and all of the kids that are bussing tables don't know where to put the trash. You got to help me find trash cans. I'm like, okay, I've never really been asked that question before, but
You look like a problem
You
solver.
look like an able-bodied
said,
problem solver.
let's go make it happen. So I walk through the back. I go out on, like, there's no trash cans in the back. So I go out on the loading dock. There's like 20 trash cans out there. 4 dudes sitting on like Home Depot buckets playing some dice game or card game or whatever. And she walks out with me, and she sees them. She's like, you get up and get those trash cans out there. So we're wheeling the trash cans out and putting them in the backs of these guys. They were stacking like dirty dishes just on tables in the back. So once I saw that was actually getting handled, I go back up front and find out that Diana was also setting place settings on the table. So Anyway,
Things
the
that-
auction did go well.
It did go well.
And there were no Handbid issues, and everybody ate. And the dessert spoons were delivered.
They
and
were.
So and dessert was delicious. So that was awesome.
And that client's been with us for 6 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to give you a little hint.
Things that only event experts and people with experience think about, like trash cans.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
What about plungers? Because
it's like
last
the
year
first
we
thing
had
to
a
think
plunger
about.
issue at an event, and Jeff was plunging toilets.
Yes.
And then he went and handed out Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
everyone's wondering if you washed your hands.
I
course.
forgot that part. I blocked it out of my brain, y'all.
right.
I did. Oh my
I wasn't
gosh.
serving the Chick-fil-A
Yes.
sandwiches. I was helping getting them sold.
This is true.
So
Yes.
it's
They're served in like the foil bags.
They
Everybody
are.
relax.
I did wash my hands. I'm a bit of a germ freak, but it was funny because again, it's you walk around this event, you're trying to figure out are things running smoothly or not, and not everything is related to the software. I mean, you want the guests to have a good time. That's what we're there to do, and we've been to so many of these things that it is probably just our prerogative to say, oh, it looks like there's a massive backup at getting Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Why is that? Like, how hard is it to hand out these sandwiches? And sure enough, they had a really kind of broken system, and so we fixed that. But
Yeah, on the spot.
So lots of things can go wrong at events. What are some other things that have gone wrong for you guys that you laugh about now, or that maybe people can prevent from happening at their own event in the future?
Deciding that you're going to do pyro and not have a permit.
Oh. Yeah. She's talking about my event, by the way, my own fundraiser. Okay.
Explain.
That's kind of a little knife in
pyro.
the side, wasn't it?
Explain pyro. Are we talking
a fireworks
fireworks?
show.
Coming on
Yeah.
strong.
I found out that
All the event managers listening are like, pyro, what?
we had
A fireworks show.
I didn't know I needed a permit. I found out at 4:00 on Friday. The event was Saturday afternoon. So
Did you
should've-
get it?
I didn't get a very fun phone call from the chief of police at Greenwood Village, Colorado. He wasn't super happy with me about it, but yes, I did pull it off.
Just not like those last minute things. You know what I have seen from time to time that just doesn't go well, and we've got some good stories in our back pockets, y'all, is things at the live auction. They become spontaneous because they're live.
And you're in
so-
the moment, and you've
Yes.
had something to drink by that point.
Something.
We hope.
Things with an S at the end. Yeah.
Well, we haven't, but our clients have, and the donors have. But it also you have to keep your game face the whole time. There's no pausing. You have to keep going. We were at an event at one time when I think it would be safe to say that the founder of this company, he was feeling a little bit like he wanted to be in the spotlight. And the live auction was taking place, and he was like, I want a piece of this, spotlight action. And so he had a lot to drink, and he walked up on the stage, and he grabbed the microphone from the live auctioneer, and just he used some colorful language to describe the item that he wanted to put up for auction.
Created an auction item on the fly.
On the fly.
Yeah.
That
And we're trying to describe it in Handbid as he's describing it. I'm like,
is
I
it?
can't use that word.
we were like, what exactly is this
Right.
item?
I don't know what it is.
So the poor live auctioneer was like, and from our founder, a blah, blah, blah. And it was like the founder knew that no one was going to bid on it. And so he called out a person that he knew on the floor and made him bid on it. It was really uncomfortable. And we had to do some cleanup work around that. But it was the live auctioneer that I felt the sorriest for.
Yeah.
He really had to, he was like, this was not in my script. This is not
Every once in
good.
a while, it's kind of somewhat amusing to see the live auctioneer kind of have something go off script on them a little bit.
They
but
go dancing.
They don't like it.
Totally.
Like it happens to us all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, especially sometimes with live auctioneers who were like, okay, these are going to be my paddle raises. I'm going to do this level, this level, this level, this level. And then they add 4 levels right in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, we're like, oh, all right. As we're scrambling to add those levels into the system.
But also record them at the same time so we
Yes.
can accurately enter them.
That's right. And how long is that going to take, Elise? I mean, we're waiting here for you to get all these
Your
entered.
fingers are frozen, though.
That's right.
Well, if you stand there a little longer, sir, I'll
Right.
be sure to get it done
Yeah.
faster.
That is one of the worst things is when they keep bothering you. And so one of the things that I would always recommend is if you have somebody on your team who's not there, send them the paddle raises to enter. They can be sitting at home, glass of wine in hand, entering them, and no one's bothering them.
That's right. That's a great
Right?
idea.
Because you're sitting there frantically trying to get these in. And it's not that it takes a while to get them in, but we check them all, right? We want them to be right.
Accuracy,
Yeah, and so we're looking at multiple recording sheets and making sure that all the numbers are right, and then making sure that that the totals are right, so we know the right bidders donated the right amount of money, and everybody's coming up to you, right? What about this? What about that? Hey, can I check
pay
out
my bill?
Yes. Anyway,
Can I pick up my guitar that I just won?
and I would say, kind of to your question, like the example I would give is situations where we have allowed a customer to initiate a process that we don't agree with. And we've really gotten to the point, when we were getting started, it's one thing to be like, the customer's always right. We want to do it the customer's way. And every time we would do it, it would backfire. And it's not a limitation of the software. It's just that some things may work well when you're doing paper bidding, and they just don't work as well when you're not. And we've just kind of gotten to the point now where we just say no.
Yeah.
I mean, like, go find another mobile bidding company that will do it. We're not trying to be mean here, but it's going to be a disaster for you and your guests. We know it. We've seen it. You think that you've done this way for 20 years and it's worked. It's not going to work. Or there's just a better way to do it, and you have to trust us on that. And sure enough, I mean, right when we got started, I was telling this story the other day. Like, we had a client, and they said, we don't even want to discuss we have our check-in process. We're going to use it. This is how it's going to work. And so what they did was they decided to split the line by last names, and so they had a range of last names. We hate that.
Yeah.
By the way,
Not necessary.
Yes, we don't think that actually helps at all. It actually makes it worse. And if you want to know why, we'll discuss that on another podcast. But their names were in front of the table. So as people stood up in these lines, no one knew what line went with what name group because someone was standing in front of the sign. So that was the first problem. The next problem was they had a printed out card for every one of the coming guests with their contact information on it. They wanted us to hand them that card, have the guest edit it, they update their contact information. We can actually do this in our software, by the way. So I just want to point that out. So
none of this makes sense.
None of this makes sense. And then, so they had a person standing next to each check-in person from the charity or volunteer, and they held the cards. And so when they'd come up and they'd say, I'm Kristen Wheeler, she'd find Kristen Wheeler and hand it to you, okay? And you would do your thing. She dropped all the cards next to me.
Lovely.
Okay.
Dropped them.
So now
right
they're
on the
now
ground.
no longer in alphabetical order. Okay. So then it was like thumbing through 150 cards looking for your name, and so it just got longer and longer. And that's when I'm sitting there saying to myself, we should not have let them do this, right? And that goes back to even last year. I went to an event, and it was the same thing. And we got a phone call on a Wednesday, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we do it. And she describes her process, and I said, it's a bad process. I said, you're going to create a disaster at check-in. And she's like, we're not budging on this. This is how we want to do it. I should have said no. But we found out about this on Wednesday. Their event is Friday. And so I said, all right, I'm just telling you, it's going to be a mess. It was a mess. Okay. And just to give you a little color on what was going on, they put a folder behind them for every paddle number. And so we had to know the guest paddle number when they arrived. We could handle that. But then everything that guest was supposed to get was in that folio. Okay. So if they were a VIP, it was in there, right? Well, some of these folios are wrong. Or they, maybe you're 800 and your spouse is 801. You check in. He never came. You're just checking in both of you. And so you give me 800. I don't know where your other stuff is. It's in the other folio, right? Or it's just missing, right? And so things like that where we would say, just put in the guest list that they're a VIP, give me a stack of wristbands, and if he's a VIP, I'll give him one, right? So that kind of stuff really kind of it just made check-in slow. And so, and for us, we look at that and say, you know what? Why don't you let us show you how to do an efficient check-in and trust us on this? I know you did it that way for 20 years. I'm sure it worked great. We've been doing this for 11 years, but in that 11-year time period, I didn't run 11 events, right? We ran over 10,000 events or more, right? So we've seen it, and so I think, and that even came up recently where we told another client no.
I was just going to say, we recently had one, the flip side of that is we recently had one and told the client no. They pushed back. We escalated it, had more people involved, and had really serious conversations and said, it's not an option. You're going to have to find another company because we're not going to do this. It's going to look bad on you. It's going to be a poor experience for your guests, and it's ultimately going to come back on us. They agreed and said, okay. Loved it. An amazing check-in. The guests were beyond thrilled. They're like, this is the smoothest event I've ever had. In the end, it really didn't matter because there was a torrential downpour and the roof started leaking in both of the ballrooms, back to weather.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. And then Houston flooded and none of it really mattered. But they raised a lot of money and had a wonderful check-in.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the event space is
It can
ruined.
be good if you just trust us on certain. We don't put our foot down a lot.
Yeah, right.
Right? But we are going back and looking at the events that we've done where we've, I'd say, compromised on something that we don't feel is a good idea, and it's just always come back to bite everybody involved, right? I mean, there was one event where we have table assignments in Handbid, so you can see what table you're at. We can tell. It actually shows up in their app. They insisted on having a printed out set of who was at what table. And we're flipping through paper because they put none of it in Handbid. Well, you know how long that takes? Right, to flip through all those papers and looking up your name and seeing where you're at, and then so anyway, it's that kind of stuff. This day and age, we'd say that's just bad process. I mean, you need to do it, using the software the way that we do it.
So we've talked about fingers freezing, plunging toilets, taking out trash, rolling silverware, getting soaking wet.
Yeah,
Just some very relatable things that have gone wrong at events that could happen to anybody. What about some of your best moments at events? Something that was heartwarming or something that went particularly well?
Oh, we had a client once, and when she came over and saw the numbers of where she was at, and they had just moved over to us, she did like 3 back handsprings like in the room.
Nice.
Okay, she's happy. That's good.
Yeah.
But no, it's good to see, your clients blown away. I mean, even when we started, and this is back in like 2011, 2012, I remember there was a school here in, my neighborhood down in Castle Pines, and they had never used anything like this before. And they were dipping their toe in the water, and they knew us, and they like, hey, some of our families in our neighborhood and our community have started this software company. Let's give it a shot. And it was, it was definitely an investment in us, right? Where we're like, wow, you guys are going to trust us to do this. That's awesome. We walk in on Friday night and they were like, you don't understand. We've made more money all week in pre-bidding than we did last year.
Yes, that's so cool.
Exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah. I was like,
Some of our school clients are our most successful.
and this is something we obviously coach our clients on, and it's one of the things that I think is the counterintuitive change you make when you move to mobile bidding from paper bid sheets. And when I'm on a paper bid sheet, I'm not going to set a $1 or $5 bid increment on an item because people aren't motivated enough to get up out of their chair, walk out of the ballroom, and up their bid by $5, right? And so you have to make those bid increments higher. And when you do that, you basically start creating bigger steps for people to take to stay in it, okay? And so we want to shrink those steps. We want people to think it's a no-brainer. Oh, it's another $5. I'll just do it, right? Because at some point, once they've bid enough, then they're going to, kind of what we call cross the threshold of how much money am I spending to I am not losing this
Yeah,
item.
I'm
right?
winning. Yeah.
And so we'll look at an auction and we'll say, I did okay. And then they'll have 5 bids per bidder or something. We'll look in there and they've got, $50 bid increments on a $100 item. And it's like, well, there's your problem. I could have gotten somebody from 105 to 110 to 115 to 120 all the way up. They would have spent more than $150. There's no doubt in my mind they would have, but they wouldn't have gone from 100 to 150. And so you have to, in one step, in one bid. So, and that reminds me, we did this event in Oklahoma City, and this lady came up to me, and she definitely had a few of these.
Oh.
And
Speaking of.
she was hilarious. She comes and she's like, "What? I want to show you something." And I'm thinking she's gonna say like there's a problem with her, app or whatever. So she pulls up her app and she says, "Watch this." She goes, "I'm gonna bid on this. Watch what happens." So she bids, and then like 2 seconds later, she's outbid. Right? It pops up with a pink screen, like losing. Right? And she's like, "It just keeps doing it. Watch." She hits it again.
She's
And I said,
teaching you about your app.
Somebody's
I love
outbidding
this.
me. And she's like, "Yeah." She was, "I want you to look up who this person is because I'm not losing this item." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure that's a good idea for me to tell you who this person is." And she said, "Well, I'm just not going to lose." And so I look at it, and it's a piece of art painted by some kid. And she's like, "You know what's the funny part?" What? She goes, "I don't even want this thing."
Just don't want to lose.
But she's up to $4,000 on this little piece of printed, art or whatever. And I was like, that's the beauty. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to see happen. And you can't do that if you don't think about how do I keep my bidders connected back to the auction. See, paper doesn't do that, right? So, that was the challenge at my event and why we started Handbid was because people float, right? They float around. I go through the auction area, I bid on stuff. I go to the bar, go talk to my friends. I am completely oblivious to what's going on in that auction till I go back. That might be 30 minutes later. And then I outbid the people that were there. And then they come back 30 minutes later. Well, there's not enough time in the night to really get an auction going on some of those items where you can on your phone. So that's step one. Step two is we tell our clients, how about we lower your bid increments a little bit? And they're like, "Ooh, I'm going to make less money." I'm like, "I don't think you are. I actually think you're going to make more money because your guests are going to get outbid more. And when they get outbid more, they're going to bid higher." And that is not intuitive to a lot of people who think about like, "Oh, I'm going to get 10 bids on this item." That was the thing that we used to talk to other mobile bidding companies, and we would also talk to people, and they'd say, "Oh, well, on paper, you average 7 bids an item, and mobile, you get like, say, 10. I'm like, I mean, I can control the bids per item. I just set the bid increment to whatever. I care about the bids per bidder. I care about how connected and engaged people really are in the auction itself, right? Because that'll tell me, when we pull up an event and we pull up their dashboard, I'm like, "Oh, this was a good event."
Yeah, right. You always
So I
know.
think we're biased, but correctly biased in our expert experience that mobile bidding at a fundraising event is an absolute must. And between even just the 4 of us, but not only the 4 of us, but the whole Handbid team, we've managed thousands of events that have raised probably tens of millions of dollars. So knowing that mobile bidding software is a must, what is one other thing that you guys think will go around the table in closing? One thing that an event needs to be successful, Elise?
Wine.
Cheers.
Okay, actually, I do have something. When it your check-in and registration process is so critical to the overall experience. It sets the tone for the event. And what you absolutely need is one way to check people in. Obviously, we're biased. Handbid is clearly the best way, in my opinion, to have your guest list, to organize your guest list, which is who is supposed to be coming. But what you absolutely cannot do is have something in Handbid as well as another spreadsheet, because they will never match. Because somebody is always updating the spreadsheet, but it never gets put into Handbid.
Aha.
Diana?
A smooth check-in process. People remember that. I think that's it.
It's their first introduction, right,
That's right.
to your event.
That's right.
It is.
When they walk in the door.
Yes.
And it sets the tone, just like you said. I like the idea of something to do. You know, there people that sure you can go to the bar, sure you can talk to your friends, but I think there's something about when you leave an event, you always want to say like, that was fun. Well, why was it fun? Because we had a hole-in-one contest, because there was a a wine tasting, or there was some other component,
Something interactive
that was engaging the donor, and I think that speaks to how does the organization communicate with their donors? How do they continue to pull in more donors? If I'm a sponsor and I've invited 10 of my family members, how does that organization make a connection with my family members as the sponsor? And then those people will hopefully become future donors. That's the idea. So I just want to throw confetti in the air, whoosh, and think like that's the kind of visual that I would like for someone to feel when they leave an event.
I'm going to go kind of the psychological method and say, I think you need courage.
Oh,
I mean, I
good
think
one.
that so many of our clients are so afraid that something's going to go wrong. I can tell you, something is going to go wrong.
Yeah, that's
okay? So
Flexibility.
But to have the courage to kind of work through that, I would say some of our biggest Handbid heroes are the ones that they can work through the complaining board member that hates technology, the guest that is completely upset that their table wasn't exactly prepared the way they want. I mean, whatever it is, those types of things happen, and you just have to kind of work through them, and you can't be terrified of making the changes that you want to make. And so we always are trying to push our clients to be courageous in that sense, all the way from not just the software you pick, but kind of making certain other types of changes to your event, right? And I think that if people would kind of embrace that to a certain level, they'll blow themselves away with what they're going to be able to do at their event.
Well, thank you guys. This was so much fun. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Yes. Thank you,
All
Kristen,
right.
for such a great idea. I've enjoyed it. Thanks
I've
for
cheered
having
the
me.
bottle twice, may I add, and have not had one drink. So we're going to sign
a
off
problem
so
with
that
that.
maybe I can just have a little sip.
That's right.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and we will see you next week.